Welcome back now to the school lunches. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall reportedly considering blocking a bipartisan bill. That bill extends federal school lunch funding because the Biden administration's guidance on banning discrimination against LGBTQ students. Now, the policy states that state schools and agencies who participate in federal food assistance programs cannot discriminate based on gender identity or sexual orientation or face potentially losing funding. My next guest recently penned a letter signed by 25 other state attorneys generals calling on the administration to withdraw this controversial policy. Joining me right now is Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost. AG Yost, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. And I want to just share with you something that one of my sources in the Senate told me, that he has spoken to former USDA attorneys who believe that the administration's rules allows them to withhold school lunch funding if any school does not allow biological boys to compete. Your thoughts?
Well, that's exactly what this proposed guidance does. They're trying to avoid the rulemaking process for starters, but the incredible thing here, whatever side you fall down on this policy dispute and the extension of Bostock, we're talking about taking food out of the mouths of hungry children. Can't we at least agree that using hunger as a weapon in a policy dispute is a bridge too far, that violates basic human decency?
So what you're saying is, under the current Biden administration rules, if any school does not allow what they'd like in terms of transgender competing, then they will block funding for school lunches?
That's exactly right. And it's not just public schools. It's the private not-for-profit schools that participate in this program as well as some daycare centers. I just can't get my mind around the idea that we're using hungry children as a human shield in a policy dispute between adults. This has never been the battlefield for policy. Imagine, for example, if the DeSantis administration a few years from now said, hey, if you don't arm and train your teachers against an active shooter scenario, we're going to cut off funding for school lunches and school breakfast. There would be an outcry on the left that would stop everything else. And yet I hear nothing but crickets. And the Biden administration has actually proposed this as a good idea. It feels like some kind of perverse new version of Hunger Games.
Well, I mean, to use funding for school lunches as a way to force this transgender issue seems to me so wrong-headed. What can you do about it? I mean, you've sent this letter. Are you suing the administration to stop this?
Well, the letter is a precursor to, I'm sure, possible court action if the administration doesn't withdraw it. Yeah, there's enough reaction around the country, and as your intro indicated, in the Congress and Senate, I still hope that the administration may come to its senses and say that this is not where we want to be. We don't want to weaponize food. But if they don't, I can't imagine that some of my colleagues and I won't go to court seeking to restrain this unlawful action. And here's one other thing. You're going to hear people on the left that say, well, this is just an extension of the Supreme Court decision in Bostock, which, was a Title VII case. The decision in that case expressly said you can't take this and put it in other contexts, and it doesn't apply to Title IX, which is what we're dealing with here. And the Biden administration is forging full speed ahead anyway, taking away Congress's role of writing the law and making up the law on its own. They're not allowed to do
Yeah.
that. And I think that provides a pretty good basis for us to go to court and complain about this executive overreach. In America, the president doesn't write the law, he enforces it.
Well, they've done that a number of times, haven't they? I mean, really, AG, we saw that with the vaccine mandate. Okay, we saw that with Remain in Mexico. We saw that with an Iran deal. All of these things, the administration has gone around Congress.
And you know what? We've been in court fighting over those things. And the OSHA vaccine mandate's a great example. The Supreme Court said,
right.
No, you're not allowed to do that.
Right. Yeah. Let me bring a former member of Congress in, Doug Collins. Jump in here.
Hey, AJ, thanks for being here. One of the questions I had, though, is I think it's bigger than if you read the actual letter from the Agricultural Department on this issue. It's more than just the transgender athletes. It seems to also imply that if there's not access to bathrooms, locker room spaces, unisex bathrooms, in your reading from my legal side, it does appear that it is basically expanding it beyond just participation in sports.
Yeah, I think that that's a correct reading.
And that's a big concern.
All
If you
right.
look at this, I mean, it's more than just sports here. And I think people need to understand they're holding food hostage for a very radical agenda.
That's exactly right. And I appreciate your leadership and your colleagues in Congress that are calling the administration out for these unlawful acts.
Yeah, that's blackmail. That's incredible. Dave Yost, we'll be watching your action and what response you get from that letter. Thanks very much for being here this morning. AG Dave Yost joining us this morning on that. We'll be right back.